Next to the half, right? We're adding 2 and half, so 2 and a half is 5 over 2, right? We good? All right, let's find the derivative. What's that one gonna be? 5 over 2. X to the 3 over 2. Okay. Minus 9 over 2. X to the half. Okay. Plus x to the negative half. Alright. And then we don't like negative exponents. You don't have to make it one single fraction. But I don't like negative exponents and I want to rewrite this in radical form, okay? So what would they end up being? 5 over 2 times what? The square root of x cubed, very good. Minus 9 over 2 times square root of x, right? Plus, what does this guy become? 1 over the square root of x, right? Easy? Sort of? Maybe you didn't like the fractions? Maybe this one would have been easier with the product rule? I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't then, right? Guess we'll never know. Unless you want to do it again with the product rule. You sure?
You show us.
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah, you do it.
You want me to do it and you want?
Yeah.
Do it on the board.
No, I'm good, I'm good.
I want to like stay over you.
Wasn't actually. Yeah, I agree.
You agree? You just want me to waste time.
Yes.
Alright, so let's try a couple more.
Cry.
To be serious.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I wanted to know.
Like, let's cry.
Let's look at this one.
Wait, we can do it. For like the.
So gonna do it like that.
Mr. Science, does that water work? Does it make you sweaty?
I don't know, I just refill it.
It's
hard water.
forward today.
I just really like the bottle because it's like the cap is really secure. Alright, here we go. Look at the next one. Is that the product of two functions? Yes. This is the first and this is the second. How would I get the derivative of this one because I cannot expand it or do anything to it? Let's use the product rule, which is directly already giving me the derivative, so make sure you label it. Alright, so what's the derivative of the first? 3x squared times the second sine of x. Keep saying it to yourself so you can learn it. Plus the first times the derivative of the second cosine x. Can I do anything to this guy to simplify it or write it in another way? I can. What is it that they both have in common? An x squared, right? And what would we be left with? 3 sine of x plus x cosine x. So both of these are both good answers, right? I'm just showing you different ways that the answer may be written on a multiple choice test, right? They might not give you the answer like this, they might give you the answer like this. You have to go from what you got to what's there. Good? Alright, let's check the next one. What do you want to do there? Do you just want to distribute? Or do you want to do the product rule? Want to do the product rule? Okay, let's do the product rule. So this is the first and this is the second. So here we go. What's the product rule? Derivative of the first, which is 3 times the second, plus the first times, which is negative sine x. Okay, so can we expand that a little bit? What will that give us? 3 cosine x, then this times this gives us minus what? 3x sine x, and then this times 2 minus, right? 2 sine x. Maybe I can do that one to make it look different.
Divide by
Divide by sine. Why do you want to divide by sine? But then you would have to divide the other side by sine also. Then you'd have h prime over sine equals that. Nothing? Is that good enough? You're happy with that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. You're happy, I'm happy. Guess we're all happy.
Is that how the other class
Yeah, I was
did
like, let me just look at it.
That's how the other class did it.
They did it well.
They were happy too. Let's try this next one, okay? And I made a mistake here. I put an x, so change that to a theta, okay? That's g of theta equals 3 theta plus theta times sine theta. So what are we gonna do here? Product rule? Do I have to use the product rule twice? Like this times this, I'll do the product rule, and then this times this, do the product rule again? Because now I have 2 different terms, right? Could I get the derivative of this guy? Oh, you want to take out a theta? Okay. So what do you want to do? Take out a theta? Let's try that out. So you want to rewrite this guy as what? Theta times what?
3 plus sine.
The sine of theta? Ooh, that's cool. You could try that. The other class didn't do that, but that's a good idea.
the other class?
So this would be the first,
Cheating on this?
and this would be the what?
Second.
The second. All right, let's try it. G prime of theta. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Okay.
So what would we end up with here?
Just
1 times
3 plus
3 plus sine theta, okay, plus theta times the derivative of the second. So what would be the derivative of this?
3 plus
Just cosine?
Yes.
The derivative of 3 is 0, right? The derivative of sine is cosine. Oh, cool. That worked out nice and pretty.
Much
Can we do anything to this guy? We have 3 plus what? Sine theta plus theta cosine theta. Wow, that was awesome. How did the other class do it? They pretty much did the derivative of this, which we know is just what? 3, right? Power rule, we could do power rule for that one. And then they did the product rule between these two guys.
Which means between
So they got the derivative of this, which was 3, and then they did 1 derivative of the first times the second, plus the second times, the first times the derivative of the second. Either way, we still get the exact same answer. Awesome, that was really good.
A lot more work.
Get this one like way easier.
That's what I'm confused.
Like the way we did.
That was easy, it was good. It's a good way of thinking. Alright, let's try the next one. But what I want you to understand there is that you could do the product rule only for one part of the problem, right? So this one, we didn't really need the product rule, we could just get the derivative like we using the power rule. Then over here, I would have to do the product rule for that particular part. Okay? So sometimes that's a possibility. Let's try this last one here. What's the first? And what's the second? Alright, here we go. So the rule says to find what? Derivative of the first. What's the derivative of sine? Cosine times the second, cosine. Plus the first, which is what? Times the derivative of the second. What's the derivative of cosine? Negative sine of x. Okay. Can we simplify this a little bit? What do we end up with? Cosine squared x, right? And then minus sine squared x. What if the answer choice is not like that? What if Mr. Science tells you to show me that the derivative is equal to something else? What do you think it could be equal to? You guys remember this? The cosine squared plus sine squared is equal to what? To 1. It's one of the Pythagorean identities for trigonometry. Yes? So could I manipulate this guy to figure out what cosine squared is or sine squared is and then rewrite this answer? Let's say I wanted to replace cosine squared with something. What would cosine squared equal to? 1 minus sine squared? Okay, so let's try it. So maybe this is the way the answer was and Mr. Science wanted you to make it look like that. So this is 1 minus sine squared x minus sine squared x, right? We replace this with this. So what would that answer look like in the end? 1 minus what? 2 sine squared x. You understand what I'm getting at? Like I might tell you, show me that h prime is equal to this. Right? And when you do the product rule, you're not going to get this, you're going to get what? That right there. And you're going to have to know how to go from that to this. So you're going to have to learn to think outside the box, right? And put stuff together. What if I didn't want the answer to look like that? What if I wanted to know, what if we did this one? What is sine squared equal to? 1 minus cosine squared, right? Okay, so let's try that one. See what we would end up there. That's going to give me cosine squared x, right? Minus, now we're replacing this guy with 1 minus cosine squared x. So what would that one give me? Cosine squared x minus 1 plus cosine squared x, making it be what? 2 cosine squared x minus 1. That's another way I could have told you to make the derivative look like. Or that's another answer choice that they could have put in the multiple choice, right? You understand?
Mr. Science, when on sign, you know, when you put negative 2 sign, even if it's a negative, it can be negative is zero.
Where would it be a negative times a negative?
It says, negative sine squared x minus sine squared x. Is it just,
We're not multiplying, we're subtracting, right?
oh,
So same sign, right? You keep the sign, you add and you keep the sign, right? Good? Alright. Are we okay? Yes? Alright. Let's try another one. What is this one asking for? The equation of the tangent line? Actually, this one's kind of messy. I don't know if I should even do it with you guys.
I'm good.
We should say we can do it last one.
I did, but I didn't really like it.
I'm not feeling it, I wish I had
should I work out my?
What do you think? Should I leave it out?
Yeah.
I don't like the way it works out with the numbers that we're using. Yeah, let's not do it.
Just write it out.
Write it out.
Down.
What is wrong with that?
Kinda like the
That's right there.
Write it
All
out. Yeah.
You actually
right.
Yeah.
So let's look at this one.
You want to be like, oh yeah.
This is another way that a question could be asked regarding it. So this is kind of an abstract question because we don't know the functions of f and we don't know the functions of g, but we know what their what look like, what their graphs, right? So you're given f and g below. They tell you that p of x, some random function, is equal to the multiplication of those two guys, right? Yes? And then they also tell you r of x, some other random function, is equal to x squared times what? G of x. And they tell you to use the graph to answer the questions that follow. So let's look at these questions and see if we can set them up. What do they tell us on the first one? G prime of negative 4 is equal to what? To 2. So they're giving us the derivative of G at negative 4 is 2. Okay? What is it that they want? They want P prime, right? Alright, so let's go back and look at this. What was the function for P of x? F of x times G of x. In order to find this, I need to know the what of P? The derivative. So can we find the derivative of this function? Let's do it. What would be the derivative of P? So f prime of x, okay, times the second plus the first, which is f of x, times g prime of x. Oh my god, was it two functions? The first and the second? I told you it was going to be abstract, right? We're working with just names of functions. We're not actually working with the actual numbers, okay? Don't freak out. Okay, so now what do I have to do with this negative 4? Plug it in.